MedTech role from the MedTech Conference by AdvaMed, and I have the pleasure to be with Seth Goldenberg. He is representing Veeva MedTech. Thank you very much for being with us today.
No, thanks for having me.
So let's have a bit of context to our audience, what Veeva Med does in the MedTech space.
Sure, so Veeva is building the industry cloud for life sciences. So we have over 1,500 life science companies that use our tools to bring their products to market and commercialize them. So regulatory submissions, clinical trials, quality management, and then full commercialization. So we've been around for 17 years. There's 8,000 of us around the world, right? And at Veeva MedTech, we're bringing that industry cloud to MedTech and helping them be successful and bring their products to market more efficiently.
All right, before we talk deep into what your company does, let's understand who is Seth and why did you start to feel the need to put your input on the MedTech space?
Sure, so I have a hard science background, so biomedical science, BS, MS, and then PhD in pharmacology. Started my career at the bench, then went to the FDA, then started doing consulting around the world, helping bring new products to market. But during that journey, I kept on seeing all the same challenges over and over again around how companies are executing and gaps in data, where are my documents, how to make those critical business decisions to move forward in a very dynamic global environment. So when I had the chance to join Veeva, Veeva's been around for 17 years. I joined 6 years ago to help kickstart the MedTech business. It was a great chance to embed some of those best practices and learnings and efficiencies that would stick, right? More than when you're a consultant, right? You do work for a couple years and then, who knows what they're doing after you leave. So it's a chance to really drive the industry forward holistically.
Yeah. So many support you give to MedTech companies, and one of them is regulations, right? Lot of conversations are around this topic, and especially for MedTech companies who unfortunately think about regulations maybe a bit later, in a later stage. So what are your advices for these companies who are just starting, let's say, prototype, and to start thinking about regulations?
No, it's good. So our company, we can support anybody from a 2-person organization up to 100,000 people, right? We have customers across all that whole spectrum. And specifically for the smaller organizations, we have tools that really start on the design phase. So making sure you're using and thinking about not only how am I going to bring this product to market, but how am I going to sell it, right? Making sure I'm being holistic about all the stakeholders, so payer, providers, clinicians, and patients. And if you have a value proposition that can check boxes for all those different groups, you'll be successful. But you also need to make sure that you're bringing that expertise or that thinking during that development phase, and your regulatory approvals, what you can put on your label, can check all those boxes. Otherwise, you'll bring it to market and realize you have a particular gap or challenge. So thinking early on, and also making sure you're doing this in a way that's audit ready, right? Doing it in tools that will make sure that can grow with you and will stand up to whatever diligence that might come in your future, whether that's friends and family, VCs, or an acquisition. What we see a lot is actually most acquisitions fail for these small companies when the big guys get in the weeds and realize they don't have the quality, they haven't actually been doing things in a robust way that would stand up to scrutiny. So, save yourself a lot of future work and remediation by starting right at the beginning.
Good. You also have experience in different markets, so scaling is a very important part of the MedTech company success, right? What makes a company successful to later scale in a smoother way and assertive way?
Yeah, so I think when you're thinking about scaling and going to global markets, you have to have a general idea of those requirements. For the most part, the health authorities are similar about safety and effectiveness. Really, you're thinking about the delivery of those products to those healthcare systems, right? The diversity of single payer systems in Europe, right, or single payer plus maybe supplement with private, to the US where there's 5,000 health insurance systems in the US today that you have to think about. So understanding that diversity and knowing that you might have to make small adjustments to adapt along the way, right? Because what might work in one region, right, that might be more cash business or single payer business, does not necessarily apply to the other. So making sure you can adapt, can be nimble as you progress into global markets is important.
Yeah. From your experience working with different type of technologies and MedTech companies, any advice or let's say next ray on the current ecosystem, let's say US, the majority of your MedTech companies are actually in the US, but you also explore the European market.
Yeah.
How do you see it, let's say, in a very overview?
Yeah, so I think today, right, there's a lot of macro pressures that are going on, and in general, the global companies, or the companies that are large and are working globally, are all facing the same challenges, right? Managing their supply chain, having visibility into what suppliers are associated with what products, and be able to adapt quickly. The companies that are adapting fast and have that information at hand are managing their way through the tariff situation in the US. Those that can't, right, are facing headwinds that are cutting into their margins. So I think while the tariff component is an example, right, there could be who knows what is in the future, but those that can gain those insights and can adapt quickly, no matter what pressures you're facing, are the ones that will excel. So the global organizations are all facing that. We are seeing an increase in investment out of Europe for the smaller side, more so than the US, right? The US seems to be coming back. There's a lot of contraction in the first half of the year, but the European market seems a little bit more bullish about this innovation. Maybe because of the headwinds that the US is facing, they're like, right, now's our time to shine, and
Yes.
we're seeing that investment. But global organizations, no matter where you are, I think is similar, and in the smaller companies, we're seeing a little bit more of a shift to the European investment, but even those European companies are still looking at the US market first.
Yes.
It's still the little guys can't get a notified body to pick up the phone, right, where the US is still a better entry point for them.
Good. To finalize our interview, any trends, let's say, in technologies, medical devices that do you think are going to take the lead on, let's say, next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a big push from a technology perspective around workflow efficiencies and value, right? We're seeing, obviously, there's the great thing about MedTech is a lot of those devices are curative for a lot of pharma, you get to take it for a drug for forever. So I think that's one thing that will continue to not go away. Obviously, we're all talking about AI and software as a medical device and all of those components. I do think MedTech has led the way there a lot with AI-enabled devices, but what I do think we'll see are organizations that have a really strong internal data governance that is structured so they can apply a lot of efficiencies internally. So the next 1 to 3 years, the companies that are doing that work to get their data structured, we're still in the evolution phase of AI, but I think in the 3 to 6 year window, there'll be a revolution. So the companies that are ready for that and have laid that foundation are going to accelerate past the companies that don't invest in the right way in the next 1 to 3 years. So make sure you go slow to go fast.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And to just close this interview, any invitation for those MedTech startups or companies in different stages that need your services?
Yes, I mean, we support that entire ecosystem, right? We're not, from a technology perspective, to help drive efficiencies in regulatory submissions, clinical trials, CRM, data tools. So, we're here to support no matter where you are in that journey, and we have a strong base, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Thank you for accepting the invitation and sharing your insights with us.
Great, thanks for having me.
Thank you.